now we're on to the actual length of the chain that you need. The chain itself, the width of the chain, will be determined by the length of sprockets you have in the back. So if you have, say, an 8 sprocket cassette, then your chain is probably going to be a little bit wider, and because the sprockets are going to be spaced further apart. For a 10 or 11 or even a 12mm sprocket, you're going to need a thinner chain to fit between the sprockets. As regards to which brand to get, if the price is right, I'd probably try to stick to the same brand as my cassette and derailleur, but it's not a game changer. You can buy different brands of chain and work. I've used lots of different brands and they've all worked. Just be aware that some don't work, as in SRAM may not work with Shimano. Just be aware of that. So the actual length of the chain that you need, well, this depends on the size of your bike, the size of your chainstay, how many gears. If you've got big gears, you're going to need a long bike, a long chain. Sometimes when you're ordering a chain, what I normally do is just order the longest version, especially when you're setting up a new bike. It's hard to know how many links you actually need. So once you have that dialed down, you can count the links. So the next time you buy the chain, maybe you will be able to buy the shorter version. I'll show you how to set up the chain length when I'm setting up my new bike. That will be on a different video, so keep an eye out for that. So now this is one of the most important parts, the actual gear ratio itself. What you need to consider before this is how strong are you on the bike? What terrain are you going to be covering? Basically, and very basically, if you live in a place where you want to go fast and you don't have plenty of hills, then you're going to need a big chain ring and a small cassette. And obviously, if you want to do a lot of climbing, and maybe you're not strong, you're going to need big cassette, small chain ring. That's really basic, but just keep that in mind whenever you're choosing things. Having a 1x11 means that you'll have 11 gears, but a 2x11 doesn't mean that you will have 22 gears. You will, however, have a wider overall difference between gears. So if you look at this comparison, you'll see that a 1x11 will have obviously 11 unique gears, whereas a 2x11 will only have, say, 14 to 15 unique gears. For a lot of people, having an extra 3 or 4 gears for the extra weight and extra complication isn't just worth it, and this is why 1x systems are becoming more and more popular. If you look at this image here, you will see that all the red numbers are unique, in that there's a significant difference between them. Sorry, 5022 is the same as 1534, so that's the same gear. If you look at the 2050, it's the same, or nearly the same, as the 1434. So this is why you don't get unique gears. There is an overlap. But you can also see, if you look down at the highest gear, say 100 cadence, I'm going to be going 59 kilometers an hour. With the lowest gear, I'm going 15 kilometers an hour, or 16. So there's quite a big difference there. If I just went to my 1x system at 100 cadence, I'd only be doing 45 and then 12. So it depends on if you want high speed or not, and the type of riding you do, whether you want a 1x or not. Okay. There's a website called mtbcrosscountry.com, and it can work out your gear ratios for you. I'll put a link to it in the description. Basically, you can put in your gear ratios that you have already, so you know how that feels, and then you can play around a little bit with the ratios. If you want to have a lower ratio than what you have already, you can play around with that, see what size cassettes go in and what you would have in relation to what you have already. So going with that, if you want an easier gear, obviously pick a bigger cassette. If you want to go faster, pick a smaller cassette, and it'll tell you how much faster you'll go. So now we're on to the cassette. So what cassette should you get? Well, the cassette, or the block, as some people call it, is the collection of sprockets that make up the gear at the back wheel. Obviously, you will need to make sure that the amount of gears in the cassette matches your gear lever, how many it's designed to index to. And also make sure you can't just put on an 1142 with a short rear derailleur. You need to make sure your rear derailleur will take the biggest size on your cassette. Again, this will be in your specifications, so check them out. Luckily, If you want to just tune up your existing bike and you just want to upgrade to a bigger cassette and your derailleur isn't up to it, luckily enough, rear derailleurs are actually surprisingly cheap. You can pick one up for $30 to $40, so check that out. And now we're onto the bottom bracket. So first things first, what is the bottom bracket? The bottom bracket is the bearings through which your cranks is attached. The job for a bottom bracket is to make sure the pedaling action is smooth and is efficient. There are so many different types of bottom brackets, and by the time I record this, edit it, and you're watching it now, I'm sure there's plenty more. That being said, there are pretty much just two factors that you need to be aware of when buying a bottom bracket, and that's the type of bottom bracket your frame is designed to take and the crank set that you want to use. Make sure you get a bottom bracket that goes with your crank. Different manufacturers couldn't agree on which bottom bracket spindle setup was best, so there are so many different types. I'll have a link in the description to my site on it to show you just how many different types of bottom brackets there is. Basic rule of thumb is if you get a Shimano crankset, get a Shimano bottom bracket. If you get a SRAM bottom bracket, get a SRAM crankset. Okay, hello guys and welcome back. I apologise, I ended up speaking to myself there for no reason. I thought it was being recorded. It's only now a few weeks later where I'm actually editing this stuff and I realised I hadn't recorded it. So I'm just going to go through it quickly here. This information can be found on my website. Again, the link in the description. So I'll just fly through it quickly for you that don't want to go to the site. Right, so the next thing we need to look at is just make sure you're picking the right bottom bracket. Below here you can see that I go through all the different types. Now again, there are other factors to consider obviously, but this here is general rule of thumb stuff. So the main one and the most reliable I think is the cartridge bottom bracket. It's all in one unit. The spindle is part of the bottom bracket, so and the cranks are actually screwed onto the tapered ends, square tapered ends of the spindle. These are pretty bomb proof. Yeah, I recommend them if you're looking for longevity and you're not too worried about the weight. So how do you know if you can use this or not, or if you need this? Well, the first thing you can check is if you can look through the bottom bracket and you can see the whole way through, then you know it's definitely not a cartridge bottom bracket. And if you can see a bolt holding on the cranks either end, then that's another sure sign that it's a cartridge bottom bracket. A little graphic I found of how it goes together. So we have our main cartridge bottom bracket. It screws in through the bottom bracket shell. Now lock ring that screws on into this side of the bottom bracket shell and syncs up with this here surface here. Once that's in place, we can then screw on our cranks onto the spindle, and that's it. It's pretty simple. So just as I was saying there, that you know, if you can look through it, then you know it's definitely not a bottom bracket. There are other types. There's cartridge bottom bracket which is talking about there. It's got splines here that you need to actually identify what it is. It just literally screws in and set and forget. Just the bottom bracket, it's a bit more to it. More bearings it takes a lot more maintenance to look after these, and you need to know what you're at to get the right tension. Basically got a lock ring around the outside and the cup on the inside which holds the bearings against the lock ring. Yeah, again, from what I was talking about earlier, you might think this is a cartridge bottom bracket because you can't see through it, but in fact it's an adjustable bottom bracket, and you can tell that from this here, sir. Next is the external or conventional thread. These are very easy to see. You see here on the outside of the bottom bracket shell, you can actually see that they're external, obviously, so the bearings are sitting outside of the actual bottom bracket shell. Yeah, if you looked in here, you'd be able to see the whole way through. Well, not all of them, but for say Shimano have Holotech where you go the whole way through there. Yeah, it's a really good system. Pretty lightweight, easy to maintain. Press fit. So for press fit bottom bracket, again, this can be identified by looking between the cranks, and the one thing that they nearly always have in common is that they don't have any grooves or holes around for installation, just because they're actually pressed into the shell, so there'll be no turning needed. So there would be no holes or anything needed for screwing it in. So basically, if it looks like this, then it's pretty certain that it's pressed bottom bracket. There are different types of press fit bottom brackets. You can get a 30mm spindle crank in there. Just give you more better stiffness because it's bigger. So here's what they look like here. So this part here is this flange here is what you see on the outside of your housing. This part here is the interference fit for your housing, so it's pressed in against this. Same on this side, and this here is just a connecting tube that stops dirt getting onto the spindle and eventually into the bearings within the cup here. If your bottom bracket shell is about 41mm, then you know it's a press fit. It's just pressed in, and there's no snap rings or anything needed within the bottom bracket housing, because if you look here, when it's squeezed in, this here flange actually acts as a stop. So you don't need to stop within the housing. This here will stop any further. Yeah, so that's press fit. As I say, the Shimano system uses a 24mm spindle diameter, same as the external bottom brackets. Again, look, you can get these in 30s as well. You can technically use these on any width of bottom bracket really that you want, but you may not be able to use the internal connecting pipe if the width is too wide. And on that, if you have a wider bottom bracket shell and you want to use a connecting rod, so that's what you have, a BB86 and a BB90. Again, exact same diameters and stuff, it's just your connecting rod here will be longer, so you can use the connecting rod within the wider bottom brackets. The BB30 spoke about, this just a 30 diameter spindle, so it's wider. There's no cup really, it's just it uses a snap ring here within the bottom bracket shell. This is squeezed in here, and this snap ring here acts as a stop so it doesn't go far in. PF30, this looks again much more like the press fit bottom bracket, however it's bigger and it allows for a 30mm. Its bike has to be designed to take it. See here, the bottom bracket shell is now it will be 6mm wide. So now we're on to the BB90, 95. This system is exclusively used for track bikes. The number in the name stands for the bottom bracket shell, 90.05 for road bikes and 95.5 for mountain bikes. Again, the bearings are pressed directly into the bottom bracket shell, and then there's like a outer seal here that goes over just to keep the dirt out of it. And I think you need to know that these are designed for 24mm spindle. And then we're on to the 386 Evo. Again, we have a 46mm bottom bracket housing, and the 865 is for the actual bottom bracket width. That's where it gets its name. And a Be Bright Direct Fit. This is used for Cervelo road bikes. The width of the shell will be measured 79mm. They're the same bearings used as the BB30 standard, and the bearings can be pressed in and stopped with a snap ring within the shell. Just these bottom bracket shells are wider, and so you are going to need a wider crankset to accommodate them. And the BB press fit is, it's basically the same, only obviously it's got the cup and cone instead of just the bearing, and because of this, the actual bottom bracket shell will have to be 46mm. And it goes on and on. Like I stopped there. I could have went on and on. Bottom brackets, as I said, they're a never-ending story, but I think you get the gist. Just you need to measure the bottom bracket width, diameter of your bottom bracket, or if it could be threaded. If it's threaded, fine. Only an English thread. If it's press fit, then you're going to need to know the diameter of where presses in, and you're going to need to know the diameter of the crank set that you're going to be using. And that's pretty much it. Just I can't really go into it any more than that, but I would suggest, as I said at the start, always use the same brand bottom bracket and crankset. Not always, but especially when you don't know what you're doing. And that is really that. Sorry about this at the end. I thought it was being recorded. Yeah, let's go on to the next thing.